Hello, folks. I am Alan for today's news. I will be reading, speaking about world news, interesting news, news to keep you entertained, and news to keep you informed. First thing I got for you here now, after I read this, I figure I heard everything now. I read everything now. This from the Telegraph. Farmers ordered to feed cows methane suppressants to help reach net zero.
The fix is complete.
And we'll see what
The
this is
fix
about
is
here.
complete.
All dairy cows will be given methane suppressants to stop them belching so much under the government's net zero plans. Ministers are planning to force farmers to give their livestock compound feeds that contain additives to reduce gassy digestion. Cows and other farm animals produce around 14% of the total carbon emissions created by human activity worldwide. Methane is released into the air when cows belch or break wind and is one of the most potent greenhouse gases, warming the planet 25 times more effectively than carbon dioxide. The government's net zero growth plan, released this week, contained new measures to help Britain reach its 2050 climate goal after the High Court ruled that existing plans were not detailed enough. The plan said officials anticipate entry of high-efficacy methane-suppressing products to the UK market from 2025 and would explore their use for cow farms at pace. This will include the ambition to mandate the introduction of products with proven safety and efficacy in compound feeds for cattle as soon as practically possible in England, it added. The news was welcome. Plan could also be adopted for sheep. The news was welcomed by Green campaigners who said it would help the UK to reduce methane emissions. Britain's commitment to the global methane pledge requires it to reduce emissions by 30% by 2030, but analysis by the Green Alliance suggests current plans will only cut them by 14%. Dustin Benton, a former chief analytical advisor to the government on food strategy, said the suppressants should be given to dairy cows first, but could later be adapted for sheep. Most dairy cows are milked twice a day, and when they're going to be milked they usually eat, so that's a pretty good way of getting it into them, he said. Let's start with what we can, reduce the methane that comes from cows and work out how we can go further. It is estimated that the extra cost of feeding methane suppressants to cows would add around 33p per year to the cost of milk for the average consumer. But the cost could be borne by taxpayers if ministers choose to subsidize the feed, or by supermarkets in a form of greenhouse gas levy. Methane-suppressing feed contains additives such as seaweeds, essential oils, organic acids, probiotics, and antimicrobials that reduce the amount of methane produced during a cow's digestion. It is a common misconception that most methane comes from cows passing wind. In fact, belching accounts for the majority of emissions. In 2021, agriculture and other land use emissions accounted for 11% of greenhouse gases produced in the UK. Livestock accounted for the majority of that figure. A government source said, agricultural greenhouse gas emissions have reduced significantly thanks to innovation and advances in technology. With livestock still being a leading cause of farm emissions, further innovation in feed products could create major benefits for both farmers and the climate.
In the UK, and all this greenhouse gas stuff didn't start until Biden became president. The question I got though, what about people? People belch and fart. The older you get, the more you do it. And are they going to start putting us against people too? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Let's go to the next one here. This is from 1945. Joe Biden just made another embarrassing mistake. He makes a lot of mistakes. I'd be ashamed to be a Joe Biden.
Joe Biden calls tornado-ravaged town Rolling Stone. President Joe Biden repeatedly referred to the town of Rolling Fork, Mississippi, as Rolling Stone during a stop in the town to examine the damage caused by a tornado a week earlier. What happened now? The EF4 tornado touched down near Rolling Fork and remained on the ground for 80 miles. The small town is a predominantly black community located in one of the poorest counties in Mississippi. The tornado flattened houses and uprooted trees. It destroyed most of the town's businesses. We're not just here for today. I'm determined that we're going to leave nothing behind. We're going to get it done for you, Biden said during his speech. I'm making sure you got a place to sleep, food to eat, helping you rebuild your lives in Rolling Stone. Biden made the gaffe twice during the speech. The town of Rolling Stone will be back, and will be with you every step of the way, he said the second time. The president then caught himself, calling the town by its correct name of Rolling Fork, and joked about his state of mind. Rolling Stone. I got my mind going here, Biden said. Republicans have made an issue of the president's mental competence since the 2020 presidential campaign. They continually question his cognitive abilities. We begin tonight with Joe Biden. Like many elderly Americans suffering from a very steep cognitive decline, Biden has good days and he has bad days, Fox News host Sean Hannity said last month. Unfortunately, this week has not been good at all. Former White House physician Representative Ronnie Jackson, Republican Texas, has repeatedly accused Biden of cognitive decline. I have long said there would come a time when I was not the only one discussing Joe Biden's cognitive decline. That time is now. As Democrats in the West Wing and the broader Democrat Party express discontent about his age-related decline, Jackson told Fox News last year.
Okay, you're going to read the rest of this in my description box. There's more to read if you would like. My idea is that the reason that he hasn't been impeached yet, because they don't want Harris, be in charge. She's about as bad as Biden, Kamala Harris. Anyway, let's go to the next one. It's from 1945. Americans will pay the price. One Democrat is angry at Joe Biden. You guys' own people were angry at him. Let's see what it says here.
Manchin regrets Inflation Reduction Act vote. West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin now regrets having signed onto the Inflation Reduction Act. He signed the legislation last July, claiming it would tackle inflation by aggressively producing more energy, get more supply, and bring prices down. The $793 billion legislative package was supposed to have addressed health care and climate, raised taxes on high earners and corporations, and reduced the federal debt. The bill succeeded the $3.9 trillion Build Back Better infrastructure and social support legislation and the $1.75 trillion version that he blocked in the fall of 2021. Manchin now admits to having been naive about the Biden administration's objectives. Our national debt stands at nearly $31.5 trillion, or close to $95,000 for every man, woman, and child, and represents 120% of our gross domestic product. Annual budgetary deficits have averaged $2.71 trillion since October 2019. Since COVID-19 began, we have added more than $8 trillion to the national debt, Manchin wrote in an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal. Despite explicit direction from Congress to pay down our debt in the Inflation Reduction Act, the administration seems more determined than ever to pervert that law and abuse existing authorities to increase spending. Manchin claims that President Joe Biden agreed the law was supposed to have paid down the national debt and generate $738 billion in new revenue and $238 billion to debt reduction. A win for China. China uses the runaway U.S. national debt as an excuse for its pursuit of de-dollarization and ending the greenback's almost 80-year reign as the world's reserve currency. The Chinese Communist Party propaganda mouthpiece, the Global Times, blamed the U.S. government's inability to balance its books for the push to end the dollar's status.
This is my description box if you like. Let's see what we got here next. This is from AFP. Ukraine calls Russia UN presidency a slap in the face. See what it says here.
Ukraine on Saturday branded Russia's presidency of the UN Security Council for the month of April a slap in the face, joining a chorus of outrage from Western. Moscow assumes the presidency as part of its monthly rotation between the Security Council's 15 member states, with ties with the West at their lowest point since the Cold War over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine's foreign minister Dmytro Kuleba said Russia's tenure was a slap in the face to the international community. "I urge the current UNSC members to thwart any Russian attempts to abuse its presidency," he said on Twitter, calling Russia an outlaw on the UNSC. Moscow last chaired the council in February 2022, the same month it invaded Ukraine, prompting Kiev to call for Russia's removal from the council. Russia will hold little influence on decisions, but will be in charge of the agenda. Moscow has said Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is planning to chair a UN Security Council meeting this month on effective multilateralism. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova also said that Lavrov would lead a debate on the Middle East on April 25. In New York, a UN Security Council diplomat, speaking on condition of anonymity, said, "In the case of abuse by the presidency, we will certainly react." However, this is not the point. The point is the war in Ukraine and making sure that we put this to an end. In Security Council, the United States has also criticized Russia's membership of the Security Council and its status as a permanent member. A country that flagrantly violates the UN Charter and invades its neighbor has no place on the UN Security Council, White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said Friday. Unfortunately, Russia is a permanent member of the Security Council and no feasible international legal pathway exists to change that reality, she added, calling the presidency a largely ceremonial position. The Baltic states also expressed their concern. Estonia's UN envoy Rein Tammsaar, speaking also on behalf of Latvia and Lithuania, warned the Security Council Friday as it met to discuss Russia's plans to deploy tactical nuclear weapons in neighboring Belarus. "Isn't it telling that tomorrow, on the anniversary of the Bucha massacre, Russia will assume the presidency of the UN Security Council? This is shameful, humiliating and dangerous to the credibility and effective functioning of this body," he said.
Discussion box if you like. Tell me what you think about him being a president of the UN Council. Let's go on to the next one here. It's from 1945. Putin's nightmare. Ukraine is about to launch a massive attack. See what it says here.
The Ukrainian military is set to launch a large-scale counteroffensive soon. The West knows it, and the Russians know it. Kiev's counteroffensive can change the trajectory of the war. A successful push across the battlefield could force Russian President Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. Conversely, a lackluster performance could drag the war on and increase the human suffering. The Ukrainian counteroffensive. Judging from the previous performance, the Ukrainians will perform well, but subsequent counteroffensives will be required to push the Russians out. Back in September, the Ukrainian military launched a surprise counteroffensive in the east after feinting in the south. The result was a rout of the Russian military from the area around Kharkiv. In the span of just a few days, the Ukrainian forces liberated hundreds of square miles and dozens of settlements, destroying or routing several Russian units in the process. A subsequent counteroffensive in the south in the direction of Kherson City saw similar success, and the Russian military had to withdraw from the western bank of the Dnipro River and also evacuate Kherson City, the only provincial capital captured by the Russian forces since February 24, 2022. However, the two assaults weren't enough to completely dislodge the Russian forces from Ukraine. A similar result from the upcoming counteroffensive could very well kill Putin's dreams of victory in Ukraine.
Let's see, as far as you can read the rest of this in my description box if you like. Let's go on to the next one here. They're from Ukrainska Pravda. Putin sends Laskisko encouraging telegram.
Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has sent a telegram to Alexander Lukashenko on the Day of Unity of the Peoples of Russia and Belarus, in which he praised effective cooperation between the countries despite the unprecedented pressure of sanctions. Source: the telegram, cited by Kremlin-aligned news outlet RIA Novosti. Quote, "We have effectively coordinated our efforts in the international arena, in the military and security spheres, and successfully implemented programs aimed at strengthening financial, economic, and nanotechnological sovereignty despite the unprecedented pressure of sanctions from the outside." Details: Putin has allegedly wished Belarusians happiness and prosperity. The dictators are expected to meet this week. Text of the telegram. "We have effectively coordinated our efforts in the international arena, in the military and security spheres, and successfully implemented programs aimed at strengthening financial, economic, and nanotechnological sovereignty despite the unprecedented pressure of sanctions from the outside. I am convinced that further building up the whole range of allied ties is in the best interests of our brotherly peoples. I sincerely wish you strong health and success. I wish happiness and prosperity to all the Belarusian citizens. Regards, Vladimir Putin."
Let's read the last part of this here.
Sponsored content. Or reference: Belarus is playing an active role in the war against Ukraine. Missiles and drones are being launched from its territory. Russian forces used Belarusian territory as a springboard at the beginning of the war, and the occupiers are still training and being treated there.
And you can, well, that's all there to read. You can reread this if you want later. Link will be in the description box. Let's see what we've got here. Newsweek. Russian TV, Putins push to liberate Finland as country joins NATO.
Russian state TV pundits recently discussed whether or not Moscow's military should liberate Finland as the Nordic country inches closer to joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Turkey's parliament voted on Thursday to approve Finland's NATO membership, clearing the final hurdle for Helsinki to become the latest NATO member while also delivering a major blow to Russian President Vladimir Putin. His concerns about the military alliance's eastward expansion became a major international relations flashpoint in the months before he launched his invasion of Ukraine. Finland's membership would bring NATO to Russia's doorstep as the two countries share a northern border. For decades, Finland and Sweden opted out of NATO membership, but formally applied to join after Putin ordered a special military operation in Ukraine last February. The country's memberships stalled for months as Turkey took issue with their relations with Kurdish groups in Syria that it considers terrorist organizations. While Finland has advanced toward membership, Sweden's bid has continued to stall. During a recent discussion on the Russian television program 60 Minutes, analysts raised the prospects of liberating Finland. Russian authorities and pundits have deployed similar rhetoric surrounding Ukraine. They have sought to justify the invasion of the war-torn country by claiming an attempt to liberate Ukraine's government from Nazis, despite Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky himself being Jewish. Pundit Dmitry Abzalov described the situation involving Finland as a mess and already out of our hands. Russia One host Olga Skabeeva, however, said that Finland is our historical land and called for Russia to take action over Finland's looming NATO membership. "We have to liberate the brotherly Finnish people," she said.
So that's in my description box if you like. Let's see what we got here next. This is from Benzinga. Hold on to your wallets. A new world currency could be in the making, courtesy of BRICS nations.
The BRICS alliance is exploring the creation of an innovative currency, with plans to share proposals on its establishment at the forthcoming summit in South Africa, according to Alexander Babakov, deputy chairman of Russia's parliament, the State Duma. Speaking at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum event in New Delhi, India, on Thursday, Babakov said that the plan is to initially transition to using domestic currencies in transactions and then introduce and circulate a digital or alternative form of a groundbreaking currency in the near future. Babakov anticipates that
Anyway, you can read the rest of this. Not much more to read in my description box if you like. Let's go to the next one here. Next one here is from Go Banking's Rate. Here's how much cash you need to stash in a national emergency if a national emergency happens.
You've probably heard time and again that it's important to have a rainy day fund set up just in case something unexpected were to happen. But we're now at a time when having an emergency fund is more vital than ever. Learn. Check your $2 bills, they could be worth upwards of $4,500 more. How to guard your wealth from a potential banking crisis with gold. The coronavirus pandemic was a prime example of how something unexpected can have devastating effects on the economy at large and on an individual level, too. While we all hope the worst of it is over, here's how to be prepared in case it's not, plus how to set up a fund for unexpected future national emergencies. Why you need a national emergency fund. Part of being prepared for any contingency, big or small, is having a reserve of emergency cash at your disposal at all times. When you can't rely on accessing your funds electronically, you'll need some legal tender to buy food, gas, or other necessities. Whether it's Mother Nature or some other disaster out of your control, you always want to be prepared by having some emergency cash on hand, said Annalie Leonard, an investment advisor representative and president of Mainstay Financial Group. Banks and ATMs may not be up and running for days after a strong storm. I recommend my clients have 3 to 5 days worth of spending money, just in case. How to decide how much to save. To decide how much to save for an emergency fund, you'll need to ask yourself a couple of questions. How much will I need for an extreme catastrophic event? How much can I afford to save? It's wise to have a small amount of physical cash at home for the truest of emergencies when banks are not operating, said Priyanka Prakash, managing editor at Fit Small Business, a company that finds the best small business software, services, and financing options. Aim to save $2,000. Individuals should be prepared to pay for essential or non-discretionary expenses out of pocket, said Brett Tharp, CFP and financial planning education consultant at eMoney Advisor. Temporary lodging or shelter, fuel, food, water, and necessary medications fall into this category. This will differ for each person depending on their level of preparedness or perception of how likely a catastrophic event might be. $2,000 should cover those costs. The rule of thumb I advise my clients is to keep $1,000 to $2,000 in cash in case banking operations are shut down due to a national emergency or catastrophe, said Gregory Brinkman, president of Brinkman Financial in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
4 out of 20 things to read, pages here. And you can read the rest in my description box if you want. I got over $1,000 saved back just in case. We got plenty of canned goods, plenty of meat in the freezer, so we're set for a while. And I hope everybody else, be prepared. That's my motto, be prepared. Used to be a Boy Scout. Anyway, let's go to the next one. This is from the Weeks U.S. Why did Biden auction off the Gulf of Mexico for drilling?
Why Biden says his hands were tied in allowing the project to move forward. The Biden administration agreed to auction off oil and gas leases for over 73 million acres of federal water in the Gulf of Mexico. This decision comes just after President Biden approved the Willow project in Alaska, oil company ConocoPhillips' multi-billion-dollar oil drilling proposal. Why has the administration taken these steps? Here's everything you need to know. Why was the auction approved? During his campaign, Biden promised he would be banning new oil and gas permitting on public lands and waters, NPR writes. However, this has not come to fruition during his presidency. Despite the implications for climate change, the auctioning of oil leases was actually a stipulation of the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, IRA. The lease requirement came from the compromise between Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat West Virginia, and other Senate Democrats in order for the bill to get passed. The auction, called Lease Sale 259, was to be held no later than March 30, 2023, and put up for sale an area the size of Italy for the purpose of oil drilling. This is also not likely to be the last land lease for the purpose of drilling. In Manchin's IRA requirements, he also called for the sale of land in the Cook Inlet of Alaska along with the Gulf, according to CNN. That lease is likely to begin in September 2023. The Gulf leasing comes just after Biden's approval of the Willow project, another large-scale oil drilling scheme, despite heavy controversy and backlash. My strong inclination was to disapprove of it across the board, Biden said following the project's approval. But the advice I got from counsel was that if that were the case, we may very well lose in court.
The rest of this in my description box if you like. Yeah, my time's about up. And I got one more for you here. This is from Go Banking Rates. How Biden's first veto impacts your retirement savings and why lawmakers are torn. See what it says here.
It took President Joe Biden 789 days in office before he finally issued his first veto, and it could prove to be an important one in terms of both retirement savings and future investment strategies. The veto, issued on March 20, blocked the attempted repeal of a Labor Department rule that allows managers of retirement funds to consider the impact of climate change and other environmental, social, and governance (ESG) factors when choosing investments, CNN reported. Congressional Republicans led efforts to pass the repeal, claiming that the rule represents a woke policy that will hurt retirement savings. Democrats have countered that the rule is not about ideology but instead aims to protect and bolster retirement savings. ESG investing is designed to take into account a business's environmental and social risks as part of a wider financial analysis, USA Today reported. It's a popular strategy with major pension funds. The Labor Department rule in question attempted to reverse a Trump-era policy that discouraged retirement plan managers from incorporating ESG factors into their investment decisions, Politico reported. Under the Biden administration, Managers are allowed to incorporate ESG into their strategies but are not required to do so. U.S. Senate Republicans, along with a couple of Democrats, voted on a resolution to overturn the rule earlier this month. The measure passed with a simple majority, helped by the support of Democratic Senators Jon Tester of Montana and Joe Manchin of West Virginia, both of whom face tough re-election campaigns this year in solidly red states. The Republican-led U.S. House approved the legislation last month.
And there's more to read if you want to read more about it. And that's all I got for you today. I hope it gave you some information that you like. And don't forget to like, subscribe, at least come back once in a while. And until next time, thanks for watching.